As well as helping them get justice, how else do you help victims heal from an experience like child sexual abuse? Let's speak to Duncan Craig now, who is a counsellor and psychotherapist and runs a survivors group. Hello, Duncan.
Oh, hiya.
It's not just about justice, is it? It's also about protecting other potential victims from predators. And I suppose there's a huge amount of satisfaction for victims of Gary Glitter this evening, but there's probably a much longer road for them to travel in getting over their experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think justice is a really interesting word. We use it quite a lot. And I suppose what one person sees as justice, another person doesn't. In my organisation, we support male victims of sexual abuse, rape and sexual exploitation. And we work really closely with our colleagues who do some wonderful work over at Rape Crisis in Manchester, but across the country. And for many of our clients and many of the people that we work with, justice doesn't necessarily always mean seeing the perpetrator go to jail. Justice can mean healing from the experience, being able to address those impact issues, the legacy issues, the things that people have done in order to keep quiet, drugs and alcohol being a classic coping mechanism. It's about addressing those issues, working through them and healing and recognising that there is life beyond abuse and that everybody has the potential to heal.
I made a film here at BBC London for the Inside Out programme, which revealed that there was a huge number of victims in the Sikh community, male and female, who weren't being encouraged to come forward to protect family honour. Who had been victims of sexual grooming. And we followed the case of one particular girl who thought, stuff that, I'm going to report this. I'm going to the police against her parents' wishes. And it became the first case of its kind, because a lot of people think when it comes to sexual grooming, it's only white girls that are targeted by ethnic men. But it wasn't. These were Sikh victims. So it was the first case of its kind. But her ordeal was actually going through the court process. So while trying to find justice, she was reliving her nightmare. Do you think enough is being done to support victims in court as witnesses, who are often cross-examined, aren't they? And it can be tough.
Yeah, and I think that recent conversations by Alison Saunders and the DPP about the difference of changes. These discussions about should we be able to video interview people in court beforehand, and recent conversations about consent. And the black and white of it is that we have failed collectively. We failed victims in courtrooms, and that there's a whole load of special measures that can be put in place. And one of the things that I think is really important for people to know is that some of the newer thinking is around ISVAs, so Independent Sexual Violence Advisors, of which there's many across the country. We here at Survivors Manchester, we have the first ever male ISVA dealing specifically with males, and they're there to support that person through the court process. And anyone going through the court process should have access to an ISVA to ensure that they're not necessarily re-traumatised and that there's somebody that's independent that's helping them fight their corner.
Give us some idea, in your experience, Duncan, because you are helping these victims. What kind of scale are we talking about? How rife is child sex abuse in all of its forms, whether it's a case like we've got here with Gary Glitter or grooming by people that aren't that much older but they're still grooming? I mean, to what extent, what is the scale we're looking at?
I think it's really difficult to sort of answer in respect of we can only know what we know, we can't know what we don't know. So we turn our attention to academics, to researchers, to kind of say, how many people out there are not reporting? And the simple answer is we do not know. But what we do know is through looking at academic papers, looking at research, talking to police, talking to victims' charities, talking to survivors' charities, is that there's a thought that around 1 in 6, or around 1 in 6 males and around 1 in 3 females will have experienced some form of, I suppose to use the broadest sense of the term, unwanted sexual attention before the age of 18. And that's thought about as being a conservative estimate. I suppose in a way it's the best extrapolation of data that academics can come up with. I think that it is conservative, and I think I would probably stick my neck out and say it's probably 1 in 2, 1 in 3 females. I don't have tons of experience of working with females, although I have done, and probably more like kind of 1 in 5, 1 in 4 males. When we start looking at sort of the data reporting, we're sort of looking at things like about 73,000 males were victims of sexual violence last year, 2013. According to recent Home Office stats, about 1 in 10 males, and I think it's 1 in 4 females were victims of rape. So, we're I suppose in a way we're just scraping the top of the iceberg. And I wonder if we were having this conversation in another few years' time, what we would know then, because following Operation Newtree and following the great big media attention that was had there, I think that's paved the way. I think it's changed the way we think about stuff. I think it's changed the way we talk about stuff. And I think what it's done is it's enabled people to come forward. It's enabled us to have conversations about that taboo subject of sexual abuse and sexual exploitation, and said to people, if you have experienced this, there are people out there who will listen. And that's really important. For those silent people, wherever you are in the country, there are people who will listen.
Duncan Craig, many thanks for your time this evening. Duncan Craig there, counsellor and psychotherapist, and runs a survivors group as well. And I think what probably shocked you as much as me there was some of those statistics Duncan were coming out with, which were conservative. 1 in 6 males, 1 in 3 girls experiencing some form of sexual abuse. People like Duncan, unfortunately, are very much needed in our cities today.